public attending our meetings. We feel like we stay in better touch with you that way, and thank you very much. Kim, would you call the roll? Please?
Mr. Bradley?
I'm here.
Ms. Fletch? Here. Mr. Webb?
Here.
Ms. Patterson? Here. And Mayor Craig?
Here. We had a couple of people come in late. Did you all want to speak?
We did not. We were here as a support group for the pickleball.
Okay, pickleball. That's a fashionable deal right now. Council, we've had a request to revise the agenda a little bit. With your permission, I'm going to take item 10 first. Item 10 under the town manager's report. Ms. Keys has to leave, and I'm going to move, we've got a lot of pickleball people here, so I'm going to move item 13 behind item 10, so they don't have to stay through all the boring stuff that they have to do unless they want to. So, what?
Behind 2 or 10, I'm sorry.
10 goes first.
And we're gonna hold all the closed sessions at the end of the meeting, okay? Everybody okay with that? All right. Okay, nobody signed up for public comment, so, oh, call the roll, please, Kim, I'm sorry. Oh, you've done that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Nobody signed up for public comment, so, I'll take item 10 now. Mr. Vedder, who's going to introduce Michael.
Hello, folks. I haven't had the pleasure of addressing this generation of the town council, so I'm glad to be here and see you all. For those that don't know me, I'm Micah Keys. I'm the president of the Historical Society of Washington County, and I'm here to talk about an event that we're having on February the 7th. If you haven't seen our Jefferson posters around, to tell you, we're having a conversation with Thomas Jefferson. And I wanted to give you a little information about it. I have some handouts here. I brought 10 of them, so if you can pass them, take them. All the information you need to know about it is in that. The gentleman portraying Thomas Jefferson is Bill Barker, and he's the person that plays him at Williamsburg. So when you go to Williamsburg and you see the people in period dress engaging in conversation, well, that's what he's going to do here for us. It'll be on the Barter main stage, and it'll be about an hour and a half, and he wants to have conversations with us. And Jefferson is pretty, in lots of historic ways, tied to this part of the country. And he did say that the victory at Kings Mountain was the turning point of the Revolution, and he was very proud of his Virginia militia. So, and the gentleman that built the Martha Washington Inn, the main part, which was a private home, at one point in time was Thomas Jefferson's guardian after Thomas's father died. Francis Preston was appointed his guardian for a while. So there's some connections here. So anyway, we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fundraiser for the society. Tickets are available at the Barter. There will be wine available, as there are at other Barter performances, by Abingdon Vineyards. They're working out a deal. We have a lot of sponsors in town. The brochure I handed out has information about sponsorship. I would like to encourage all of you all to come, and I know that all of you all being in the same room, listening to the same speaker can be problematic sometimes, so hope some of you work it out that you'll be able to come. We'll put you on separate sides of the but I hope some of you can come. I think it will be very interesting. If you're history folks, I presented this to the Veterans Park Committee, and they got into a really good discussion amongst themselves about Jefferson and his policies and politics, and I thought, this is the kind of discussion that I hope we have at the meeting. Kevin, you were there. It was a good little brief discussion there. So I think it will be fun. The DAR and the SAR and the Over the Mountain Victory Trail people are going to participate as ushers, and they will be in period dress. Michael Henningsen, whom I think some of you know from the Muster Grounds Music, is going to do the ruffles and flourishes when he comes on stage. And we have a group from Lee County three young guys, teenage guys, that play authentic colonial period fiddles, instruments. So they will be playing during when everybody's coming in, taking a seat, they'll be playing. It has promised to be a very interesting evening, so I really want to encourage you all to consider sponsoring it as a private individual. We've had lots of our members do that. There are free tickets involved, and or pass the word to folks you know. I have a couple of posters here, so if somebody could see that one gets put someplace where the public could see it, I would appreciate it. And help us out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martha.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Any questions, comments?
I
You
was
all-
at
all
the, I was at the meeting as well, the Veterans Park. We did have a good, healthy discussion about that. And thought it was good and also good for the children. We all have already put up posters and everything at the schools and invitations to the children at school.
Yeah, Mr. Barker is going to, I think, Patrick Henry High School to speak to a couple of the classes, and then he's going to be at Emory, I believe, speaking to a couple of the classes, because part of Williamsburg's mission is educational outreach, so it all ties in together. He told us that this was a success, and we're hoping it is, that we could arrange to make it an annual event with a different speaker from Williamsburg each year, which I think would be a great event for Abingdon to be hosting each year, and having, so get out there and help us make this a new tradition start here, okay? All right.
Did you post them at the high schools and everything?
I haven't, but I think Walter Jenny is in contact with someone with the school system that is doing that. Walter Jenny, I think who is he, the Rotary president, he's working on this too. So,
Martha, the town council has a meeting for all of us can go to an event like that together. So don't let any of them use it if they don't.
okay, very good. Glad to hear it. Then I expect to see everybody but one I know. Expect to see you all there then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take up item number 13, discussion of regarding additional courts for pickleball. Kevin Harlan.
I know there's a lot of good support here, and I think that's wonderful. I appreciate all y'all. Greg back in the back.
Kevin, he has a presentation also in the video.
Very good, because all I really have is what you asked me to do the other day, Mr. Venom did, is to get some ideas about some location for some courts around town, how we could put them in, what we could do, get some cost estimates on that.
Well, why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll take.
And then we'll look to present. We were looking at, looked at some town properties, a couple of places that I was asked to look at, and I've looked at before, one of which was the farmer's market. But the problem with the farmer's market is, the issue that I had with there was the safety, and and it was discussed with staff before, is the width of a pickleball court painted on the concrete there will fit, but the sides, anybody running out, you still have all the pillars running down through there, and it was a safety hazard. One of the other parcels that I was asked to look at is a parcel that we've looked at for other projects in the past, and that is down Blacksfort Lane. We own a couple of acres or better of property right there, right off of the Creeper Trail, well, across from the Creeper Trail, and we could easily put in a parking area, a couple of pickleball courts, concrete. What I looked at, of course, there's as you get closer to the creek, obviously there's a concern about being wet, low end. But up closer to Blacksfort Lane, there is more solid surface, and would be no problem to put in a couple of concrete pads. What I would suggest is, and we've looked at the idea of possibly doing grass courts at one time, but grass, not necessarily for pickleball, but for other things, but grass courts don't hold up well and won't play well for pickleball. Especially our area here doesn't, it's not very conducive weather-wise to maintain grass courts. But we've used the product before, it's called VersaCourt, and it's an actual decking that goes over, you know, broken tennis court, or you can put it on a new surface that works real well for pickleball. It's called VersaCourt. You can put it in. The ladies were educating me about the color combinations and some of those things as well. When we started pickleball, I was introduced to it years ago and played it various places, especially at Bristol, the Slater Center, and bought some courts or bought some nets. We started playing at the rec center. It's kind of more of a pickup thing, and it wasn't really gaining ground. We put a staff member at that time in charge of it, and the rec center has taken it and helped flourish that program and develop that, and Amy and some of the staff up there have done a wonderful job. So that's why we have a large group of pickleball supporters here to talk about developing more pickleball in our community. It's a great program, works great for all ages, multi-generational can play together. So it's a very popular, it's an old sport, but it has a sport that's really gained a lot of popularity in the last 20 years or so, and it continues to grow. So I'll let Greg come up and do his presentation.
Kevin, would you explain to all of us, and everybody present, where Blacksport Lane is?
Okay.
I think I remember it.
If you go down to the bottom of the hill here, if you go down past the barter, down the bottom of the hill to Pecan Street, turn right, like you're heading back to the head of the Creeper Trail. The first street on your left is Park Street. The next is Blacksport Lane, and then you get to the railroad, the creek and the railroad tracks is on it, is the next, before you cross over to A Street. That's that location down there.
Is that where the old cobblestone ordinary used to be years ago?
Yeah, farther down, near the railroad, the town owns some lots, vacant lots back in there.
Kevin?
Hello.
I'm Greg Case, and I'm a member of the Abington Pickleball Club. Here's some of the guys here, just a few of them came, most of them can. I want to put a plug in for this guy here. I've seen him out in your town working the Creeper Trail, and he's top. You know, they don't come any better. Anyway, let's just do this video and let it kind of tell you. I did email some individually. I don't know if you've had time to open that. But thank you, Ms. Kingsley, for putting this up here. And let's go ahead and play this, and it'll speak more to me. I can.
I'm here in Southwest Virginia in historic Abingdon. Abingdon is the ultimate weekend getaway with historic buildings, fine restaurants, arts, and culture. Taking a show at the Barter Theater, the State Theater of Virginia. Stay the night at the Martha Washington Inn and Spa, a resort hotel built in 1832. And visitors to Abingdon can now play pickleball. There's a thriving pickleball community now in Abingdon, hosted at the Harry L. Coons Recreation Center. They play multiple times a week. They've got indoor courts and outdoor courts. And they're just a fun group of people. To find out more information, check out the links below. So book your next weekend getaway in Abingdon, and we'll see you on the court.
Wore the same clothes, guys, but I did wash them. I think, as you can see, it might only be a benefit to, you know, some of us older people, but it's also, I think, could be an attraction for the town. You've got the Barter, you got, you know, the Martha and the Tavern, of course, and the Creeper Trail, and now I hear you're doing a proposed mountain bike. It just might be another thing to add to your list of attractions to the town, and there's a lot of people that come through carrying their paddles. Where do I play? And there's no dedicated outdoor pickleball courts specifically in this whole region. And I do want to introduce a special person today. Pete, would you come up?
Not special.
We think you are.
Special to us.
Pete Lawson has just been appointed as the ambassador for the USA Pickleball Association, which is an incredibly high honor. And part of his job is to promote pickleball. So I'm going to let him speak a little, and if there's any questions at the end, if you'd let Pete know. But I also wanted to just give you guys just pass that around. These are some statistics that you just glide through them. It's kind of like how many play and stuff like that. But thank you all. And we're just here to ask for any consideration you might have for pickleball courts in Abingdon. Thank you.
I don't know how many times I can tell you I've watched that video. I'm from Bristol, but I tell you what, first few times it almost brought tears to my eyes. And I'm not exaggerating because the people that were in it, but also, wow, what a story for Abingdon. As an ambassador, I'm a volunteer for USAPA, which is United States of America Pickleball Association. It's my job as a volunteer, I keep on telling myself a job as a volunteer, that just doesn't work sometimes, but is to spread the word. Kevin did a great job just right there talking about pickleball. Didn't realize you played at Slater. I get to play with Slater quite a bit. But pickleball is such a growing sport, and the biggest part where the growth can be is young people. We definitely have the more mature people playing a lot, but one of the issues right now is, where do I play if I work an 8 to 5 job? There's not a place unless it's outside. Do a great job at the Coombs Center. You can go over there, and how many are playing? They're sitting there on the benches waiting to play, and Amy has done a great job there. Pickleball has a magazine that comes out every 2 months. It's again published by the USAPA. Pickleball Channel is on the internet. You can go in and search just pickleball, search just different things, and there's an unbelievable amount of things that are going on with pickleball. Tournaments going left to right. The US Open is played in Naples, Florida, over 3,000 entries. Those are people that could be a person that's played a year, a person that could be playing 20 years. We play with someone in Johnson City who's 95, Coach Walker from Milligan. It's just as Kevin said, it's an intergenerational sport. You can be playing with grandparents and their grandchildren. Got a call last week from a lady over in Bristol, asked me to come by and walk off her driveway. She wanted to put pickleball courts on her driveway. I gave her some figures and things like that. Told her, you just got to be concerned. How are your neighbors going to play? If you've ever gone by a pickleball court, you hear a lot of popping with the pickleball paddle, but you also hear a lot of laughter. And I think most of you all would agree. There's a lot of times it's a lot of fun. It can be very competitive. Got a gentleman in this area out of Jonesboro, Tennessee, that is a 5-0, which is basically a pro ranking. Won the US Open last year in his age group in the 40s. Wonderful guy to play with. He's leaving to go to Knoxville for another job. But just a sport that, again, I can't say enough about it. I've been playing only for 2 years. When I retired, I said I'm going to pick up the old golf clubs again. Went down to Slater Center one day and watched some people playing, and then happened to go to Charleston, South Carolina, where my daughter is. They offer a free orientation class, a one-day class. We took that for an hour. My wife and I went out that afternoon to Dick's Sporting Goods, bought us 2 paddles, chalk, and hit the closest tennis court we could find and started chalking it off, and it's been an addiction ever since. What we'd like to do, again, is encourage anything that you all can do for that. What I'd really like for you all to do is pick up a paddle someday. Part of my plans to do as an ambassador is to do some of these clinics, offer clinics, introductions. Did one last night in Bristol at the Boys and Girls Club for the Optimist Club in Bristol. And we had people playing after 10 minutes. That's the big difference in, I guess I compare it to tennis. I used to play tennis a lot. In 10 minutes you can be playing a game. It's a fun sport, it's an easy sport, but if you get at certain levels it can be a very competitive sport. And pickleball is actually a sport now that people are making money at it by playing on pro tours. I'm rattling, I need to move on, but any questions about pickleball?
I'd like to make 2 points. One is you can put 4 pickleball courts on a boundary of 1 tennis court. So, and if you thought of it as 1 tennis court, you could have 4 pickleball courts. Yeah. And we would invite you guys, come and play. You know, you will get addicted. I hate to tell you that. It is an addiction. But we have one rule, Mr. Craig. I think you emailed me and said your health wasn't where you could play. But we have one rule. If the ball comes near you and you can't get to it, you let it go. Okay?
I don't think I could live with that. I'm a competitive tennis player. in my day.
Well, here's a tennis player here too, and he has a hard time, but I think we'd like to invite you to come over, maybe see an exhibition, Pete, I don't know.
And one more thing regarding the video, talking about traveling. My wife and I travel to different tournaments now. Mount Airy was one that we went to, made the mistake of having our first tournament. I said, let's go for our anniversary to play pickleball. Well, we thought that would be good. I guess we thought we were good. We got in the wrong category, and probably the worst anniversary we've ever had. Luckily, I'm still married. But we went back again this year. And this year we stayed a couple extra nights and did the Andy Griffith Museum, rode Barney's car around town, so spent some money. Also have been, and the proceeds that they, each year, for the last 2 years, they've donated to the health department, $4,500 for equipment. Myrtle Beach went to this year. It's a regional tournament. Bigger, 400 contestants. They donated $20,000 to the Homeless Foundation of Myrtle Beach. Pittsburgh, it's just the same thing. Now, bigger towns, Myrtle Beach, Pittsburgh, $36,000 to, I think it was either St. Jude's, someone like that. There's money to be made. I'm not saying, and I'd say that and say, okay, that's not why you would do pickleball, but you can see there's an opportunity to people coming into town to play pickleball. You saw this, see RV picklers, a lot of people now that when they're traveling in their RVs, are discovering that there's now pickleball courts being built. All right, questions? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Can we go?
Hey, Militia, did you want to speak on this matter, Militia?
Other than we are super supportive of our pickleballers, we love seeing them come up. It definitely filled a void at the center when we started the program. There was some empty space in the gym, and it was a great opportunity to plug it in. We wish we had more time to offer to them, but you know, when you've got a program only so far, and you have to have open gym time as well. I guess ultimately for us, we've brainstormed a couple of other options, some more expensive, but obviously we would love to have another gymnasium, and we'd be able to offer more indoor options for our pickleballers. And I have to give credit to Kyle. He came up with the thought of maybe taking away one of our additional tennis courts at the center and offering some outdoor courts there to try to remedy the problem in a more speedy manner. However, we haven't looked into what that would cost and if it's feasible for us in the near future. So another couple of options to think about when looking into filling this need. Other than that, that's all I have.
I think we all as a pickleball club want to thank Coombs too. You all do a super job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure? What would you like to do with this issue?
Would it be rude if we left?
Yeah, you can leave. That's why I moved you up on the agenda. You can leave anytime you want.
We don't want to be rude or disrespectful.
Before you leave,
We gotta get back to
just one second. Before you all leave, I'd like to address the guests, if that's okay with you, Mayor Craig. We'd like to, once again, thank you all for coming and showing your support for pickleball. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. And we would like to invite you back anytime. And also, we've got some applications upstairs. If you want to serve on any of our committees, we welcome you. And come anytime that you like to our council meetings. We are so happy you came. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we've got a long agenda, so let's figure out what we want to do about this.
If we need to.
Skip one, two.
I'll take up 13. Pickleball, what do we want to do?
I want to see more courts somewhere.
I think we probably should refer this to the recreation committee and get their recommendation, ask them for, so we know we have something we can act on. And you're on that committee?
Yep.
Make sure you give us something that we can act on.
Yep.
Okay.
You be there tonight? I'll make sure.
Is that all right with you guys? Kevin? Is that all right with you?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Okay. All right, and you'll report back to us at our next meeting.
Did everybody hear that?
Will you be able to report at the February council
Yes, we'll
meeting?
meet
Will you
tonight.
is it all right with you? I'll put that on the agenda?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
You probably need to speak just a little.
Excuse me?
You probably need to speak just a little louder.
Speak louder. I thought I was a loudmouth already.
I don't believe everybody can hear you.
Can you all hear me now?
What'd you say?
Gotcha. Tony, we're in a hurry. We haven't got time for it.
There's one in every crowd.
All right, council, we're skipping the closed sessions and taking that up at the end. So we'll take up item number 3. Mr. Vidum, discussion regarding parking at the Cooper Trail.
We did a little research on, the town owns a triangular area where most of the parking is now. Take that back, the town does not own it, the town leases that for about $300 a year from the railroad. We met, with the bank representatives on some property that they hold the lease for. However, the lease on that property is considerably more. There's a railroad spur that comes into it, and there's actually 2 leases, about $3,000 per year. The bank also had some other stipulations on the property. Recommendation at this point, I think, from staff would be that we don't pursue that any further, but look at some directional signage for overflow parking that's behind the building towards the town public works building, and a little bit of discussion as far as making improvements to kind of put a curb around and direct the parking in so that you could probably get another half dozen vehicles in. Right now, it's whoever comes in parks, and then people park. If you park this way, people park this way. If you park this way, they're parking inside. So a little bit more definition. The problem with that, again, is that you'd be making improvements on property that is leased but not owned by the town. And probably would have to clear any of that with the railroad to make improvements on the leased property.
Mr. Bill, can you tell me, for us, excuse me, how much property that we have right there behind that, I guess it's the bathroom area there? Can we dig out any more, to increase parking?
There, originally, what we had thought was, if you're looking at the property, there's a driveway that goes into the rear. The thought was to basically funnel traffic in there and come into the parking area. Do you recall that offhand?
Well, I think, I'm not sure if we're speaking, you're speaking of the property there, off of, Kings Mountain Boulevard, Kings Mountain
Yes.
Drive, to get on
Yes.
the overflow parking.
Mhm.
And how much space do we have there?
Mhm.
We probably have close to at least, gosh, a third to half an acre. There's, you can, I'm not sure if there's any more, I'm not sure if there's more potential to increase the parking there or not. I think it's too steep. It's without a lot of earthwork or some retaining wall, I think we've about built all the parking we can build there.
People kind of pull up on that bank anyways, you know, like.
Well, I know I've seen the parking lot full with nowhere to park, for people to park. A lot of times, and I personally feel that we should go ahead and make some improvements and put the signage in and, make use of what we got, if we can do that. If the council agrees, I'd like the staff to put the funds for the improvements in public works budget next year. That's what you all agree.
I agree, but I believe Mr. Bidden's saying we'll have to get permission from the railroad.
How hard is the railroad to work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, need to get permission. I don't see why the railroad would object because we're parking there now, so.
The problem with dealing with, and this is Norfolk Southern,
I believe so, yes.
but it is true of most railroads, is you do things on their time and it's difficult to find.
You
it.
can't even find a person to talk to.
Right.
But sometimes we can do things and ask forgiveness unless it's in violation of our lease.
Right. I mean, you're not talking about paving or anything like that, just putting out lines and that sort of thing. Nothing that would be-
What do you think would be?
I think that if a combination of trying to do some frontage improvements along, Con Street and Greenspring Road in that area, I think
I'm
it would
sorry,
help.
what improvements? I didn't mean to
Some
interrupt.
frontage improvements
Frontage,
to try and
okay.
get an entrance, because right now it's kind of wide open. So like Mr. Vinham said, the first person that parks there sets the tone for how everyone else parks there the rest of the day. So if we could get some direction of this is where you need to park in the most efficient means possible, then maybe we could do something in the right of way of the road, up close to the road, and get people started. Maybe we wouldn't have to do too much work in the railroad property.
Do you think putting a curb along and a defined entrance?
I think that would be a good start.
And the curved entrance, that would be on the right of way, on the town's property, right? And so we're not really improving the railroad's property by doing that. And if you paint lines on the railroad's property, I can't see how they possibly object to that.
You can go through and stir the gravel up.
You know, it's not gonna last anyway.
Right.
What about along A Street there? I mean, some people park sort of on that side, right?
Like on the railroad right away.
Where the shelter is, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you go across the tracks and then turn left, and then, is that our property on the side there?
On the left, yes.
It'd be on the right if you turn.
You mean on the right there, like once you turn left?
Right behind Finley
the
House
building?
on
Yeah.
A
Yeah, there's
Street.
3 or 4 spots there for
Yeah,
the shelter.
they're already using those.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
There's no more room to add more there, though?
No, because when you go behind that, you're at the shelter at that point, so there's no other room to go in that direction. At one point, we used to have some medians, little grass medians out at the entrance of that parking area. Those were removed. The town actually looked at doing a paved, section all along the Creeper Trail, pulling into the parking lot at one point a few years ago, paving it to make it easier to pull in and out of, and then we're going to go in, exactly what we're talking about, and put in a couple of defined entrance and exits and mark a few spaces, and then as Matt was, talking about, once you set that up, then that kind of lays out what everybody else does. Because when people pull in there sideways, or pull a truck in, or a horse trailer, or some of the other things, it just takes up all the parking disappears real fast.
Sidewalks on that side of the road would also give you better entry to the urban path that's gonna be going in, and the folks who will be patronizing the bike shop, because a lot of those folks from the bike shop park in that parking lot.
That was what my thoughts were. We were building this nice urban pathway, and the beginning is right there at the Creeper Trail, and then we take away that parking. I wasn't in favor of that, so that's good.
It was Matt and Tyler, and we'll try to sketch out something and cost it.
All right,
see what can be done.
thank you. Mr. Bradley, update regarding Sinking Creek Cemetery Committee meeting.
After a couple of years' absence, we had a meeting of the cemetery committee, thanks to Mr. Vidham and his staff. And it was a very interesting meeting. We had to reorganize. And they made me the chairman.
You were the chairman?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Well, I was chairman before by default, because the chairman, the guy who was really chairman never showed up, so I ended up chairing the meeting. We took up several things, including a proposal that's been hanging around for some time to build a columbarium, which is a place to put people's ashes after they're cremated. Build a columbarium out there. Well, there are plenty of columbariums around. All the private cemeteries and funeral homes and churches and everything else have columbariums somewhere. And we saw no reason to build a columbarium out there and compete with the enterprises that already exist. So we tabled that for some other time, hopefully a long time. And it also took up a problem of placement of directional signs at the cemetery. How to Windy Hill, the book that addresses where people are buried, directs people to various places, including the first circle, the second circle, and so forth. And we want some signs placed out there, nice signs, tasteful signs, to show what the first circle is and the second circle and so on, so people can find their way around. They have help with an iPad that's on the porch of the cabin out there, and disguised to look as a stack of firewood. And so we can direct people from the iPad and help them find their way by using these signs. Also, we address the need for some beautification, trying to get the town bought some property adjacent to the cemetery, and it's been hopefully incorporated into the cemetery. I don't know whether it's been officially done. They bought some remnants of lots on that side of Russell Road that butt up against the cemetery, and we want to see the fence moved out to Russell Road, incorporate those lots into the cemetery. If we do indeed own them, and we're going to be checking on that to be sure. And that's about all I can remember.
Do we need to do anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you for Okay, item number 5, update on bids to complete climate control retirement. Jason Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're in full swing on getting the bids. We've received 3 bids ranging from $24,800 up to $41,750. We plan on going with the low bid on that. Ready to put in the purchase requisition for that HVAC installation. Myself and Rick Statzer are working closely with DHR and contractor that we're planning on going with to get the information for the installation process to DHR and get the approval. Once we get DHR's approval, that process will then go before HPRB on February 6th agenda, and then after we approve from the HPRB, we will move forward with the installation of the HVAC system.
Okay, do we need to approve the bid at the next council meeting, or?
I don't think so. It's already in the budget, worked in the budget, so.
Okay.
Should be good to go on that.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Glad to see that moving ahead.
Good.
Jason, again, update on cost to complete proposed parking lot and walking path at Muster Grounds.
Again, we're working diligently on this project as well. We've got a really good plan set out. We sent the information, the GIS information and proposed materials and how we're gonna construct the path to DHR. They sent us back some feedback, which we were kind of expecting, and DHR is requiring a systematic subsurface testing. So we have put out a bid for archaeological study of the property, shuttle testing, and that report. Should be available whenever we get the, whenever we choose who we're gonna go with for the bid. It's probably about a 60-day turnaround on that. Once DHR approves the archaeological study, then we'll be able to move forward with the path construction. The parking lot, we've had a little bit of change on what we're thinking about doing. We actually, and I printed this off for you all to give you all a visual on it. We actually own 2 tracts of property. This upper tract here next to this, these condos, this already has sidewalk, curb, and guttering, so it doesn't require any type of improvements. If we were to improve this lower section that we had talked about previously, we would of course subject ourselves to our own requirements. So we think that this is a much more level surface, and it gives us easier access. Don't have to cross the street here to get to the walking path. So I've had Jamie Chafin take a look at cost estimates for this piece of property. To do the grading work and then to add the base stone, it's gonna cost us around $2,500, which is very minimum. If we wanted to throw in some brown stone to make it nicer, sort of what Muster Ground Parking has currently, that may bump it up to an additional $2,500, $3,000, which I think we do have in the historic property.
Keep that in pocket change, don't you?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the way we write your check. So, a grand total, for the construction of the pathway and to fix the parking lot, every way that we would like to see it done, we're estimating about $16,000.
What did you say?
$16,000.
16,000?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Jason.
I have
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a quick question. You may or may not know the answer to this. The shovel testing in archaeology, how far away will those shovel tests be roughly?
50 foot.
50 feet.
And that's consistent with all 3 of the proposals that we've gotten, so it seems to be the standard when they're applying testing.
Thank you.
And Jason, you have the money in the budget to proceed with.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're going to item 7, update on condition of Breckenridge cabin proposed to be relocated at Muster Grounds. Jason?
Well, I've laid eyes on it, man.
You're in demand today.
Yeah, I've laid eyes on it. Rick Stanzer actually climbed in the storage container and climbed around on it. It didn't disintegrate, so that's a good sign. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. There is a little bit of condensation buildup, but that's kind of be expected. It didn't look like any of it was dripping down on the logs and causing any type of damage. I am not a log cabin expert, but I think it's in good enough shape that if we so choose to put it over there, that it could be reconstructed.
Okay, good. Anybody have any questions?
I have a comment. Mr. Tom White, I spoke to him the other day when I saw him at the sale of Summers Law Office, and he was very happy that we're gonna reconstruct that and put it back up. So he's the one that originally donated it to us, so he was very happy about that.
That's great.
And am I correct saying that that'll have to be worked into the upcoming budget, because you don't have.
Yeah, we're not really sure what kind of figure we're looking at on doing the reconstruction yet.
You would have to contract that out.
Yes, sir, we could not, there's no way.
That's a
we could do that.
specialty.
Yes.
Okay, item number 8, update regarding Avenue Comprehensive Plan kickoff meeting. Jason. Wow.
I've been busy. You all hand out.
That's a first, isn't it?
I ain't gonna let you pull me down.
Just gotta work.
Everything occurs.
Wayne's just giving you a hard time.
We appreciate all you do.
Thank you, man. I appreciate everything you all do.
I'm gonna try that, yes, I think that's what we do.
We are, we'll be in full swing on January 28th, the upcoming planning commission meeting. This is the agenda that we've set for that day. It's gonna be a busy day, it's gonna be a long day, but I think that we're gonna get quite a bit accomplished. 8:30 in the morning, we'll do a meet and greet with the consulting team, and then we will quickly load them into a van at 9 a.m. and we're gonna do a town tour. We're gonna highlight key areas of interest to the consulting team, take the opportunity to stop and tour some facilities and meet some people in the community. We'll break for lunch around 11:30 or 12, and then we will continue and complete the tour after lunch. Get back here at Town Hall around 2:30, and the consulting team will meet with community leaders from businesses, nonprofit, education, health, and other sectors of the community. The consulting team plans to learn from their perspective the key opportunities and issues facing the town. We will break and provide the team and any of the steering committee members or planning commission members that are here with dinner. And then the consulting team will be doing their introduction and kicking off the comp plan at the end of the planning commission meeting on Monday.
Okay, looks like y'all got a full agenda.
It's gonna be a busy day.
Any questions, anybody?
I do. Is any one of the council, do I need to post a notice of 3 or more you?
I'd like to go, is that okay?
If you wanna be here, that's fine. There should
I
just
just need
be.
to post notices.
I'm a member of the planning commission, so I have to be there.
Yeah, I've never been to one of these and I'd like to attend.
Do you wanna go on the tour? Do you wanna do the whole thing?
I would, yes.
You're more than welcome to do it.
Kim, I may go, so
Okay.
we probably should post this now.
I'd like to be a part of it, thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, sir.
We've got, the next item is number 9, consideration of triennial memorandum of understanding, designated community 2019.
Mayor, did you want to move that to the end of the other executive
Yeah,
session?
right, we probably should do that right on the closed session, right? Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
All right. We've already done item 10. Discussion regarding elected officials training in April 2019, sponsored by Mount Rogers Planning District Commission. Mr. Craig, would you please speak to the crowd?
Yeah, here's your mic.
I was contacted by,
Aaron Sizemore.
who?
Aaron Sizemore.
Aaron Sizemore from, he's the planning commission director, but he's also the town manager of Glade Spring, Virginia. Glade Spring and, no, he's the town manager of Damascus, I'm sorry.
No, he is Glade.
Glade Drive.
He's Glade too.
He's both?
He used to be Damascus.
Well, how come our town manager just has one?
Larger town.
They would like to, or they're trying to get training for new council members, locally. By locally, I mean somewhere in the area, and I think they're leaning toward having it in Abingdon right now. He wanted me to find out from you guys if any of you would be interested in attending those sessions. I assume it would be like a 2 or 3 day session that you all went to just recently, is that right? But he said that even experienced county council members like me and Cindy, we probably would benefit from it also, because it's a little bit different than what you get in Richmond, is that where you want? And how, I don't really know. So he wanted to know if any of us are interested, so they can start planning that training.
I would imagine it's quite a bit more detailed than what they got in Richmond.
And that part I don't know, but he said it would be different, and he thought it would be beneficial to town council members that have already had the training. So Al, you wanna go?
I would.
I do.
And I probably will, so it's probably gonna be 4 of us.
Do we
Yeah,
know
I'll
what
go if I
day?
can.
Oh, you want?
Yeah, I'll go if I can,
Oh,
sure.
all 5 of us? Okay, all right, I'll let him know.
We don't know what day in
It's
April.
better than that. Kim, would you let him know?
How is our-
You know, I can't remember anything anymore.
I can't be there on the 11th. Okay.
I think they were looking at an April date.
Yeah, I can't. That is April the 11th. Yeah, I cannot go. that day.
Okay,
I don't see a date.
Yeah, there's no date yet.
no, he hadn't established that. He said early April.
You're just ruled out.
Is there anybody that can't go on a certain day in April? Or do we
Well,
want to go
probably
there?
not.
I don't think we need to do that yet. I think he just wants to know if we're interested, and then I guess he'll try to work around that.
Okay.
Kim, you're gonna let him know, right? Okay. Discussion of, item 12, discussion of sports complex and Green Spring Road budgets. Mr. Vittle.
Okay, we have slowly been trying to pull these two things apart, and develop a budget to see, how much money is available and how much money is needed. I'd ask that you look at the budget line item, column only, and forget the other two. They're about 30 days, in arrears, so I haven't updated as far as what we currently spend. We have tried to put some estimated funding for the Washington Square Connector in, and Matt gave me some information just before the meeting that the numbers I have in there for engineering are about $8,100 instead of $25,000, and about 300 and, do you have that? Yeah. About $258,100 for the construction budget. So Washington Connector, if it's done, would add about $331,000 to the budget, and the number I had put in for property acquisition, it all depends upon final negotiations and closing costs as to whether that's high or low. The two pieces of new information that have been added, one is an additional AMT amount. They have about exhausted the budget that they had of $392,000. Probably will exhaust it with the last month's invoice when it goes through. I have not received it yet, but I'm anticipating and putting in about $50,000 in additional inspection services from AMT. There's a $6.1 million budget to complete the Green Springs Road. If you've done the Washington Connector, about 6.2. The estimate right now is about $3.6 million in loan money will go into the Green Springs Road. you flip over, and again, the sports complex, the budget is what you should look at on this sheet as well. We have received an additional request for geotechnic of $50,000 from CHA because the project has run longer than originally estimated, and they have overspent their geotechnical budget at this point in time. Need to get with Chuck Manor and basically look, the expenditure amounts are what the town, for CHA, are what the town is contractually obligated to. I don't have a breakdown. I'm sure that nothing has been spent on the bid phase, construction administration. So that's the bulk of, in final design, is the bulk of what's left to pay CHA. Mr. Steele has a construction budget that he has revised and broke into two phases. The first phase was just under $7.5 million. And that gives an $8.3 million budget for the sports complex. We have approximately $100,000 for the splash pad that has been raised that is part of that $8.3 million. We're submitting an application to VDOT for recreational access funds that could provide at least another $400,000 towards the project. Matt has been working on and will be submitting a grant request to AEP. It was due today. They'll be looking at the letter of proposals that they received tomorrow for up to $75,000 in grants. So we're trying to look at other funding sources, but at this stage, to do the project as outlined in phase one, we're about $1.4 million short when you look at what's available in the line of credit funding. My understanding is there may be some private funding sources that we haven't tapped into yet. But what I've been trying to do is pull these two apart. I'm assuming that if you move ahead with the Washington connector, it would come out of the line of credit. If it comes from another funding source, that frees up $300,000. These budgets and the deficit kind of floats. The more you spend on Green Springs Road, the less of money is available for the sports complex. And I think that hasn't been clearly broken out in the past. And I guess as a ending, there was an article that I think Matt sent me the other day. The city of Charlotte, North Carolina has a greenway belt that is going from one end of the city to the other end of the city. And their council basically has found out that the original estimates, they have 1/3 of the money, and they have $77 million. So they're about $150 million short of where they thought they were with the funding of that project. So we're gonna have to find that much money, but there is it does look as though there is a deficit at this point, and that is part of why the CHA has recommended as much of the add alt, so if you don't know until the bids come in, so if the bids come in at or below his estimates, you may be able to add some stuff back in. But, and I do have a breakout that I gave you, the column that has the yellow highlight are the items that would either be pulled out for funding by the VDOT recreational access, which is shown in the far right hand, or they would be items that would be pulled out and deferred to a $1.5 million second phase. That could be done at any time, once the town has established revenue flows coming in from the Meadows project. And these numbers, I haven't sat down and finalized with Chuck and Matt to make sure that they're 100% on board with where we are, but I think they're fairly close.
Are we ready to begin fundraising, discussing fundraising?
I would suggest that sooner rather than later, because once you're under contract, you're gonna be obligated, so knowing that you've got a pool of money available, because I put it at donations at 1.4 million, it's actually right now your shortage is 1.4 million.
I've got a question, just to be clear for everybody, public and myself. If we fund the Washington Crossings access, Green Spring Road realignment was 6.1 million, and then if we fund the Washington Crossings, it's gonna be 6.4. And that comes in from Cook Street, I think. So is there gonna be an outlet to go out into the Sportsville complex in the back? If we, if it's gonna come in to instead of it being for just private development, usage, is it gonna have another road to come out of the back of it to go back into the Sportsville complex?
From Washington Crossing?
Mm-hmm.
There would be, you've got the Harmon property between Washington Crossing Shopping Center, so there is no current right-of-way through that property to provide an access. At some point in the future, if the Harmon property was developed, it might be possible to do that, but
Thank you.
So, Ken, we talked about you and Derek, I believe Derek volunteered to assist in this fundraising as well.
Sure.
Are you all prepared to move ahead?
Sure.
yeah.
And then you thank you, Councilman.
I think at this point, I just want to make council aware that, of where you stood. I think it's better to know now than 6 or 8 months down the road, once you spent more of the line of credit and all of a sudden you're getting bills that you don't have the funding for.
We may have talked this earlier, but I think you all need to have an idea. I'm in favor of building the connector if we have an opportunity to do it, and look for funding for the sports fields later. I think that's Washington Crossing should be built before the contractor's gone by a change of, that's what I think. And you go away with that or not?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Wayne, but I think we need to look at alternatives in our development of this sports field, where we can cut back on, what parts, in order to reach the budget. I don't wanna go over budget with building this sport complex and see the town on its knees, you know.
After the last meeting that Mr. Steele came and spoke, then the recreation committee stayed and met, and they sort of negotiated, I guess, about what was needed and what wasn't. Does this have updates from that meeting or not?
Yes, these revisions were made after that meeting. And only got them about a week ago with the holidays. Mr. Steele took some time off and we had trouble pinning him down.
Just to kind of update y'all on the last rec advisory committee meeting, many of the guys that are on the committee now felt like that Mr. Steele's figures were astronomical compared to what the actual cost would be. Not to say that those guys are experts, but they're pretty familiar with it, because one of them, you know, is the president of the league and so on and so forth. So they felt like some of those figures were way higher than they should have been on lighting and so on and so forth. So and we haven't had access, of course, to this breakdown since the last meeting. So I think we're gonna take a close look.
I do have another spreadsheet I can copy it off, print it off for you, which is a breakdown on some of his costs that, I just wanted to get the total budget sheet out to you as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Well, Ken, before that you bid it, to Al's point, before it goes to bid, we should know about the Washington Crossing pretty soon. And, you all are gonna have enough flexibility in the bid for us to build something meaningful, within our budget, or at least you're gonna try, is that right?
I think so. The other thing on Washington Crossing is we are exploring with VDOT whether it qualifies for the 50% revenue sharing. There's money in the pot that VDOT allocated, but we have to get approvals from them as to whether it fits within the scope of the budget. If they will pay for half of that, then that's $125,000-$130,000 that comes off that 1.4. The Washington Crossing does depend upon being able to successfully acquire, you know, all the necessary property to put it in. But I think those estimates, pretty comfortable that they're in the ballpark of.
For the construction estimate, yes, sir.
Okay, Donna, did you and Derek, are you all in favor of going ahead with the Washington Crossings if they're able to get the rights of it?
I personally think that's the best scenario for the town, from a tax revenue perspective. I think anybody that's going to develop that property, whether it be a hotel or whatever the case may be, is going to require a red light access. I mean, you know, from a commercial standpoint, I just think that's gotta be there. Cause, I mean, if I were putting a hotel in, I certainly wouldn't do it with the entrance exit it's got right now. You know what I mean? So I think for the town, from a tax revenue perspective, that's just my personal opinion. Cause the hotel's gonna bring in way more tax revenue than whatever, you know, retail space. But that's just me.
The other thing we're talking about is the possibility of looking at the final grading. It was in the sports complex project of pulling that out, doing it as a change order on the Green Springs project, which would allow the current grading contractor to do the final grading. Could possibly save a significant amount of money. If you hire a general contractor, they're gonna hire a grading contractor, and probably, you know, the general contractor's gonna take his 20-30% markup on that, so you may save on the final grading. We're also looking at the final elevations, depending on where the fill is. As long as you can get gravity sewer from the improvements, doesn't really matter if you're a foot higher or a foot lower than, you know, unless that foot lower puts you to where you can't gravity sewer, then that's an issue, but,
Okay, Cindy, are you okay with Washington Crossing, or do you have an opinion?
Well, I'd like to, I think I'm in favor of it, Mr. Craig. I just need to get a little bit more information.
The reason I'm asking is if we can get a deal on the right of way, which I personally think we're pretty close, we're gonna need to move quickly on that,
Yes,
very
sir.
quickly too. And I don't wanna call a special meeting unless we don't approve, so I wanted to give them, I guess you've got communication from at least 3 council members. So are you all right with moving ahead if we, to avoid the contractor leaving and it costing us a lot more money?
yeah, I think that before getting anything final with the contract, we need 2 things. One, to get confirmation from VDOT whether or not it's eligible for the 50/50, hopefully it is. And then secondly, you can't tell the contractor to start doing the grading work until you have the right of way.
Well, I'll tell you something about it being eligible. I'm gonna be really upset if it's not eligible, because VDOT was at the public hearing and they made a big pitch that the reason for this project was for access management. And Washington Crossings was in what they showed us. So I'm gonna be very upset if they don't pay for half of it, I'll just say that.
Matt's been in contact with them, and we don't have a yes or no yet, but it's, we're hoping for the yes.
I have a question about this budget.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Bidham, if you don't mind, for clarity for the public as well, the public needs to can we give this to the public? Is that okay, or?
It's a public document now.
It is, okay. Well, I mean, I just wanna be clear on that, but clearly here, it says total project $10,964,810 for the Sportsville complex. And you say we're $1.4 million short. Is that including all this?
Well, this project early on, it's, before I took the interim position, I went over to his office and busted in on him and spent several hours trying to get a handle. The budget and the pictures and drawings that have been produced were based on what people said they wanted at various meetings. Mr. Steele said he really never was told whether he was designing to a budget or budgeting to a design. Was he supposed to design something and then we would provide the budget, or did we have a budget and he was supposed to design something to fit that budget? He was never told either way, and that's part of what I've spent the last couple of months trying to pull everything together, and I would like to see these 2 projects separated so that council receives an update each month of exactly what's been spent, what's left to be spent on each project. And then a realization that anytime you have a change order that increases Green Springs Road, it decreases what's available to the sports complex. But obviously with a $10 million budget, or $10 million total build-out that was on that, he was in the budget to the design mode. Most of the people in this room were not here during the initial phases, when this project was put together. So I don't know what the concept was, you know. There may have been a clear picture of how this was going to end. I thought since day one that, it doesn't surprise me that, the money available and the project are two different places right now.
The reason I asked that question is I don't want the public to be surprised, when it's more than $1.4 million that we're short. I just wanna be upfront with the public and let everybody know what we really need. I mean, we were presenting that, the entire sports field.
I mean, it would
complex.
be, we're going to be asking for VDOT recreational access funds. Mr. Steele thinks that it is highly likely we get them, and hopefully they'll be at or above the 400,000. We found out about the AEP grant, that's 75,000. So we are trying to find places where we can begin plugging or closing the gap.
I hope we do get fundraising, cause I really don't wanna raise taxes for this either, to come up with an extra
Well, do
money.
you know a cost of the change order to date, what we've had to pay?
The, the total, and there's been 13 change orders?
There have been a lot of change orders, but they fortunately have been very minor.
I think they total about $80,000.
Okay.
That we had felt that the change order taking out the roundabout was going to be in the $150,000 range. That's came in at 28,000. But the same day that we got that, we got the request for 50,000 additional money from the CHA, and we haven't got it yet, but it's coming. Request for additional funding from AMT because they're about out of the budgeted amount that they're contracted for.
Well, $80,000 is, on a project of that size, it's really good.
Yeah, we're really pleased with the
Yeah.
change orders. It's numerous, but
We are expecting one more change order on Green Springs Road, which would be final change order for quantities. There's a lot of items that were bid. What they'll do is, you get a credit if they bid 1,000 feet of pipe and they only put 950 feet in. You get an additional charge if they bid 1,000 and they put 1,050 feet in. So AMT has taken a look at it and they feel that things are close. They haven't told us whether it'll be close, a little bit of a deduct, or close, a little bit of a increase. So the amount I've got in here for the Green Springs Road is the amount that we're currently under contract for. And that includes, I believe, the all 12 change orders, including the roundabout.
Do you have a prospective additional cost of AMT? Do you have any kind of estimate that we may have to, roughly?
I don't have anything firm. I was putting probably 50,000 based on what they've been billing and the estimate that we'll be working, finishing it up in March.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussions on that item? Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the possible conflict February 14th and April 16th work session. Mr. Phillips.
Yes. We got our calendars out before. I'm working on two calendars, one I have at home with my other boss and one I have here. I had made a commitment that I would go with her on, and I will be off the 14th and 15th of February. I gotta turn this thing back on.
Okay, so we need to move the February 14th work session agenda, the work session meeting.
I was thinking, Marvin, here, meeting on Valentine's Day.
Because,
Because we love each other. Okay.
Derek, you're usually the one that has the most tightest schedule. Are you have any other dates that week, or you want to go the 21st?
Well, the 19th or 20th of the next week, the Tuesday or Wednesday would be fine with me.
19th or the 20th?
If that's okay with you
What's the
guys.
19th?
Tuesday.
I'm probably gonna be out the 18th and 19th, and
20th would be.
back to,
Okay, how
I'm
about the
pretty
20th?
sure,
20th is better for me. Is that okay with you all?
Works for me.
and,
Donna?
That's fine, 2:30.
Al?
see, the 20th
Calendar,
was,
but I think I'll be all right.
I've got you all have a non-department budget. Is that on?
February or March?
Ah,
Because we're talking February right now.
yeah, I got a call in, my finger hit, and I changed to March. Let me go back to February.
Are we gonna schedule this for 2:30?
Sure.
Sorry, what?
Like I said, 19th or 20th would be.
The 20th?
These, I don't know about work.
20th is fine.
We got everybody there on the 20th. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
2:30, is that what you want?
Works for me.
April the 16th on the work session.
Let's see here.
So we got a problem with the April 16th work session?
I will be the first conference.
Oh, you have.
When will you be gone, Kim?
The 16th through the 19th.
Do you want to change it, or Tanya can?
Tanya's going also.
I'm here in April.
Tanya's going also. Boy, we're hurting all the time. Ken, did you allow them both on the same day?
Who's gonna hold things together?
We'll just be around it.
Don't hurry back now.
I'll tell you that right now.
Hurry back.
All right, guys, what do you want to move that to? Derek, tell us what days you got that one.
Well, if they're gone.
Should be the week before.
Yeah, if they're gone the 16th through the 19th, I'm pretty much out that week, unless we get late. The week before, on the 11th.
No, I can't do that. I'll be gone all day.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The week after, I can do the 25th.
25th, all right with everybody?
It's fine with me. Everybody else?
What time?
2:30 on the 25th. See, Ken, I told you we were planning too far ahead when we did this. You remember that?
Are you picking on me?
All right, let's see, we skipped, what item did we skip?
1 and 2 and 9.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna do you wanna do 9 in closed session, Ken? Or is there anything you want in open session?
In open session, we have got, I believe you were given, in your packets, the current, agreement with Virginia Main Street needs to be renewed, and, the agreement between the town and Abingdon Main Street. We had, the current agreements were, I think, sent to you, and then, a one-page sheet with some changes that Abington Main Street was suggesting, and then a redraft of the agreement that includes those changes along with a few others that were being suggested.
All right, council, we need to have a recess, and I don't know, Kim, you can help me, or Cam, you can help me. We can recess and come back and go into closed session, is that right? That's a better way to do it, or you want?
Sure, we can take a recess and then come back and vote.
Okay. All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess. You didn't kick me, so don't keep worrying.
They're done.
I think
Oh, that's what we've been.
We need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You gotta do it this
Right
way.
here, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry.
This
No,
is-
I haven't got Kim.
This is the absence, look, you got the first one, right?
No, sir, I thought we were doing.
Which one?
Well, let's do
You want
this
to go
one.
about, okay.
Do you mind here?
No,
This is the first one right here.
Yes.
Do I need to read this one too? or what?
no, that's the second.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session for, the subject of the grievance. I hereby make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended, section 2.2-3711A, like Alpha 8, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel, consultation, that's right, isn't it? With legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel.
Okay.
I'll
Motion by-
second that.
All right, motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Vice Mayor Patterson, and second by the Honorable Mr. Bradley. Is there any discussion? You want us to start? Call roll, please, Kim.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch? Aye. Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Craig?
Mr. Banner had a question.
Do you need us to stay, or would you like us to? It's up to Ken. I don't really know if you need to.
Yes.
I think Kim was.
I don't need
asking-
Chuck on this one, but I need him on the
Okay,
other one.
all right.
Okay.
You don't need me on this one?
Not on, I don't think I'm.
Okay.
are we on?
Not yet.
Let's need a motion to go back in open session.
Okay, we're not on yet.
Well, we need to make that more specific.
Are we on yet? Do an audio test.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, hearing, everybody.
We're ready, sir. We're ready, sir.
Okay, we need a motion to go back into open session.
I move we go back into regular session.
Motion by Mr. Bradley to go back into open
I'll
session.
second.
Second by Ms. Welch.
We'll get to you.
Any discussion? Okay, Kim, call roll, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Wedge?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Craig.
Kim does the certification.
Whereas the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Town Council. Mr. Bradley?
I so certify.
Ms. Wedge?
I so certify.
Mr. Webb?
I so certify.
Ms. Patterson?
I so certify.
And Mayor Craig.
I so certify. Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Do you want to
Are
say,
we on what number? Number 2 or number 9?
do you want to direct Ms. Kingsley to put that policy on the
Oh, I'm
agenda?
sorry. Council, you want her, you want Ms. Kingsley to put that item on the agenda?
I would move that we direct the town attorney to rewrite the grievance procedure and add it to the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
So moved. Can I say that? Or
So
can I
second.
second it? So moved, so second.
Okay, any discussion? Call roll, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Wedge?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Craig.
Okay, now you can go.
Now we need a motion to go into closed session to handle this meeting. And you want compensated leave next, right?
Okay. And I'd like to make the motion that we go into closed session for compensation, absence, liability. I hereby make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, Section 2.2-3711A as an alpha 8, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel.
And I would second that.
Motion by Mr. Vice Mayor Patterson, second by Councilman Webb. Any discussion?
You invite Mr. Banner and Mr. Vidum and me in closed session.
Okay, I'm gonna invite our guest.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Wedge?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Craig. date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Where section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the town council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore it be resolved that the council of the town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the town council. Mr. Bradley?
I so certify.
Ms. Wedge?
I so certify.
Mr. Webb?
I so certify.
Ms. Patterson?
I so certify.
And Mayor Craig?
I so certify.
Motion.
I'd like to make a motion unless somebody else wants to.
Go ahead.
Okay. Make a motion to go back into closed session again.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We gotta authorize.
Oh, we do, yes, we
The town
do.
attorney to.
I'm sorry, I stepped in front of everybody.
But I'll make that motion to authorize the town attorney to make any necessary changes.
Motion by Mr. Webb, is there a second?
And put it on the agenda.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Wedge. Any discussion?
Get that, Ms. Kingsley.
I did, thank you. Did you say discussion? Have we done that?
Oh, God. All right, call roll.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mrs. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Craig?
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, and then you can make a motion to go into closed
I'll
session.
jump in then, ready?
All right.
Okay, I'd like to make another motion to go into closed session. Subject will be memorandum of understanding, Abingdon Main Street.
Thank you, Chuck.
I hereby make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, section 2.2-3711A as an alpha 29, for the purpose of discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract. Where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Okay, motion by Ms. Patterson to go into closed session.
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Quetch, any discussion? Okay, call roll, please, Kim.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mayor Craig?
Aye.
Sir, do you want anyone invited?
Let's see. Ken, do you want anybody else in? Want Tanya in?
Tanya and is Jane still in?
They both heard.
Maybe the two of them can at least at the beginning give you some of their perspective, how it
Okay.
worked.
Okay.
Ask them if they'll come in.
Here you go, ma'am. Oh, you check.
Oh, sorry about that.
Vader, and you can meet some of these folks.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
To hear their ideas.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
So now we
Bye.
Al, we've got one more item, do we need a break or?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
You gotta
We gotta have a motion to,
wait, you gotta wait till they're, are they ready? Sorry.
we need a motion to go back into open session.
I said move.
All right, motion by Mr. Bradley,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Webb. Any discussion? All right, Kim, call roll, please.
Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
And Mayor Craig.
Do the certification, thank you.
Whereas the council of the town of Abington, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the town council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Abington, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each and ever's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the town council. Mr. Bradley?
I said certified.
Ms. Quetch?
I so certify.
Mr. Webb?
Aye, so
Ms.
certified.
Patterson?
I say certified.
And Mayor Craig.
I so certify. Okay, now we need a motion to go into another closed session.
Oh, my goodness.
See, it's right on here.
Oh, it is, right here. I'd love to read that unless my.
Get ready.
What is this for? I can't remember.
This is,
Well, I'll read it and I'll tell you. It's-
Well, wait a minute,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
before you do that, why do we have this on the agenda? I can't remember. Kim, you remember?
Oh, Mr. Bradley.
I'm not sure which one it is.
Real property for public use.
Oh.
15.
Wanted to discuss and get some direction with Fairview Farms as to how you want
Fairview.
staff to proceed.
Okay, I make a motion. Mayor Craig?
Yeah, go ahead.
Make a motion that we go into a closed session, as the reason stated by Mr. Bidham, closed session pursuant to 2.2-3711A as an alpha 3 of the Code of Virginia as amended for the purpose of discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public use or of the disposition of publicly held real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Okay, motion by Ms. Patterson to go into closed session. Is there a second?
I'll second
Second by Mr. Webb. Any discussion? Kim, call roll.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
aye.
Mr. Webb?
that. Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye,
And Mayor Craig.
Aye.
Would you like Mr. Bradley to join us?
please.
Kevin, you ready for you, sir?
what he said.
Where-
Thank
where-
you.
Like, more like a contract.
More than contract.
If they take care of Fairview, that'll take some expense off the
We're
house.
on.
We can do it at, like, if the amount
Kevin.
would be.
We're on. I'll make a motion, we go back into open session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion by Ms. Patterson, Vice Mayor Patterson, second by Al Bradley. Any discussion? Kim Caldwell, please.
Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
And Mayor Pratt.
Aye.
Whereas the council of the town of Abingdon, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the town council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the town council. Mr. Bradley?
I say certified.
Ms. Quetch?
I so certify.
Mr. Webb?
I so certified.
Ms. Patterson?
Certified.
And Mayor Clay.
I said so.
I
Okay,
move we adjourn.
this
Councilman Forrest.
This meeting is adjourned.
They have the contract addendum